Good morning, Wakefield, and welcome to, I believe, our third or fourth rendition of what's happening with COVID-19. This is a little chat we do every Friday morning at 10:30. With us today are our usual suspects. Our Superintendent, Doug Lyons, is here, our Communications Director, Jen McDonald, our Health Agent, Ruth Clay, and I do believe that the Chair of the Town Council is here, Ann Santos, and if I missed anybody, and our member of the Board of Health, Laurel Gorval, is here. And we have some members from the public. Oh, and our Emergency Management Director, Tom Walsh, has joined us as well. So I am happy that you are all here to join us today. Again, if you have any questions or any comments you want to make, please use the chat function, which is at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to answer any questions that if we have any. Well, I wanted to start off with a couple of things. All things being relative, Wakefield has remained in the yellow category with a total of, maybe we can put that little screen up there so people can see. Ian, if you wouldn't mind. One of the problems with if it's my phone rings on my computer, sorry about that. But any event, as you can see, Wakefield remained in the yellow category, which was a little bit important because this was our third week in a row of being out of the red area, which means that we are no longer considered one of those high-risk communities in the Commonwealth. And there are about 30 of them right now that have been red for a number of weeks. I think it's 3 weeks in a row you're red and you stay in there. So we're very happy to be off of that. Doesn't mean a lot really to us in how we're going to, in anything we can change, but Ruth might touch on that later, but really didn't mean a lot going in, didn't mean a lot coming out. But we are happy to have less cases. But still, there are a number of cases that we've had. And if you look at that, where Wakefield is 79 cases over the last 14 days. I'm sure that Ruth and Doug will talk a little bit about this as we go on, but they seem to be linked to some are work related, people bringing it home from work, some are gatherings, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. And some, believe it or not, are Halloween parties, etc. So despite the fact that there was a lot of messaging about that, people still tend to get together and for some reason don't wear a mask all the time. And the good thing is that a lot of Wakefieldans are getting tested, and our test positivity ratio was 3.18 over the last 2 weeks. Can we go to the next slide, please? So as you can see, the lot of communities in Massachusetts are red, 62, as a matter of fact, out of 351 cities and towns, at least red for this week. Wakefield, and if we could put up the circular, Wakefield is surrounded by a number of communities that have maybe a little bit more density, and therefore they have more cases. But as you can see, this is a still a pervasive disease. It is not a hoax. I will tell you people, it's not a hoax. I still get people stopping me. It's a hoax. It's not a hoax. There's been 192,000 cases in Massachusetts. Not a hoax. 10,500 people have died from this in Massachusetts. Telling you it's not a hoax. No one's trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Why would we? So I think we all need to be very careful. But Wakefield seems to be holding its own. I did get a question the other day whether we could have some of our cherished street events, and the answer is no. Sorry to say we cannot. Street festivals are still not allowed. They're in the next phase, and hopefully we'll have them next summer. So Wakefield, thank you. I think you've proven to be pretty strong in the last few weeks. I'm seeing a lot more people wearing a mask, and I have my class of 2020 mask. I hope that I imagine we'll have one from the class of 2021, but hopefully they won't need them at graduation. So this is your biggest defense, Wakefield, right here. So I've said enough. I always say too much. I think I'll turn it over to Ruth and then to Doug.
Thanks, Steve. So as you said, we are in the yellow, but not to be a killjoy. We're in the yellow because they changed the formula for red and yellow. So if we were still using the old formula, we would still be red. Last week was
Everybody else, though.
sorry,
What everybody else.
but last week was our highest ever week of number of cases, with over 50 cases last week. The week before was 20 odd cases. So we doubled last week. So far this week, we should be back in the 20 odd cases for this week. So hopefully last week was the high point or the low point, depending on how you look at it. This is not unusual. All of the communities around the state are experiencing the same thing. And as Steve said, it is the clusters are household clusters. Typically, one of the adults in the household becomes positive for whatever reason, and then the rest of the household becomes positive and becomes a cluster because there's 3 or 4 or 5 people at one place. That's our normal. We haven't had any situations or clusters through the school. The schools, although before school started, we were thinking, oh, schools might become super spreaders. Exactly the opposite has happened, not just in Wakefield, but the data across the Commonwealth, the country, even internationally, is showing that schools are not spreaders. And actually, right now, schools are probably the safest place for your child to be, because for 6 hours a day, nobody is exposing them and they're not exposing anybody to COVID because they're all 6 feet apart with a mask on. After school, evenings, weekends is different. But during school, the school department's doing an awesome job at keeping everybody very, very safe. I think that's my update.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Doug, how are things in the schools?
Thanks, Steve. And Ruth, thank you for the kind words about school. And I would agree. I think that as we contact trace and as we work with students and families to contact trace, we've seen no transmission to date that we know of in schools. So that's very positive for us, which is kind of an evidence or a data point that leads us to believe that the safety precautions that we're all taking are really working. So when you hear when you hear Steve or Ruth talk about, the need to continue safety precautions, hand hygiene, wearing masks, being socially distant, these things are working, right? The increase in kind of cases that we have this week really transpired Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of last week. And so if the good news is that after Sunday, we've had just a few cases, which is important. So last week when I reported, there were 12 student cases where 8 of those students had recovered and were back in school. We had 4 active cases where students were in isolation. Since that time, we've had 13 new student cases, which kind of gives us a total at this point in time of 25 total student cases. Due to the rapid increase last Friday afternoon, Saturday, and Sunday, and in working with the Board of Health, Ruth Clay, and with Karen Cronin in contact tracing along with our school nurses, we were able to contact trace, but due to the high number and the rapid rate of change at the high school, we thought it was critical for us to really make a decision around scaling back our schedule, where small groups of students would continue to come in, but we would move the majority of our students to a remote schedule, which is what we did on Sunday evening. So this kind of very quick change was not something that we wanted to do, but more something that we had to do. So we did this in collaboration with Board of Health, school committee, and obviously the town leadership. And we appreciate everyone's support to kind of pivot and make that change. Especially want to thank the students faculty, staff, and administration at the high school for being able to make this change to remote so quickly. Not only did they make their change to remote, but they also made the change to an all synchronous model to make sure that student time was accounted for as effectively as it could be. So that's where we're at. We are planning on staying in this schedule until the end of next week. And our plan is to return to our hybrid schedule in person on the 30th. This change in our schedule has also resulted in the need for us to cut back or cut the athletic season short by 1 week. We were entering the last week, and we thought that it would just be safe for everyone, especially as we approach Thanksgiving. If we're going to scale back in-person teaching and learning, we also need to scale back athletics. So that was a decision that we made as well. It was a hard decision for us to make, and we know how much students look forward to athletics, but it's something that we needed to do just to keep everyone safe. So that's where we are at this point in time. Again, if the good news is the transmission rates or the positive student rates from Sunday until right now look to be just a few students. So we're hoping that that trend continues over the weekend and we don't have another spike like we had last weekend. So that's a quick update. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
I don't see any in the chat. Anybody from the panel? No? Okay. We are again joined by our Town Council Chair, Ann Santos. Ann, did you have any words of wisdom for us?
I don't know if they're words of wisdom, but I just want to underscore that I think both on the municipal side and the schools that we've shown flexibility, but we haven't shown panic. We haven't pulled the plug to go fully remote through January, which I am sure the majority of students and parents really appreciate, because as someone who's teaching in person and who has taught remotely, there's a big difference. I don't care what people say. There is a huge difference to have students in the classroom. And I think the data, it's all about data, and people who suggest it's a hoax, I can't even talk to them, but or give them any consideration. But the data suggests that schools are safe. So I think your plan to go back on the 30th, I really appreciate that. And on the municipal side, we've just been flexible. As I said, we haven't been panicking. We've been thoughtful. We've looked at data. And that's why I believe Wakefield's been pretty successful. So those are not words of wisdom, but those are just my comments. And thank everyone again on this panel.
Great. Thank you very much, Ann. Laurel, any perspective from our Board of Health?
Sure.
Are you the chair, by the way?
I'm not the chair. Elaine Silva is the chair, but I'm available on Friday mornings. I'm the secretary this year. But I just want to share one quick science fact in regards to masking to make people just more aware. So, everyone is seeing that the big mask campaign, but what we're finding even within households, that if both parties who are in the same room together are masking, they're actually protecting each other. And even if there's some viral shed, the dose is decreased, and therefore people may get COVID, but their symptoms will be, much less. And I've seen an example of this in a household that's very close to me, where, one person had a terrible cough, but managed as if it was a really bad bronchitis, but his spouse is quite immune compromised. She has tested positive, but she's asymptomatic. So, I don't know if that gives anybody any weight to realizing how important it is. Our hope is that as the whole country goes through this on the medical side, that we're seeing a less significant disease. If you notice, the death rate has remained somewhat steady, even though numbers are going up. So it really is a double down on masking and hygiene and distancing until we can get that darn vaccine out there. So I don't know if that helps anybody, but I think if you're sick, you do need to isolate, and it does matter, because it's kind of like getting a flu shot, where sometimes people do get the flu, but it's a much less serious course. So there's grades of illness out there, and we need to be alert. That's all I got.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Laurel. Actually, it's a great segue to Jen McDonald, our communications manager. We'll talk about, we're continuing to campaign about the W's and about wearing a mask, and we're going to be kicking off another portion of that shortly. So Jen, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so last week I ran through the traditional media we were going to use for our W's campaign. And the W's, again, are wash your hands, wear a mask, watch your distance, and Wakefield Pride. This week, I want to tell you a little bit about kind of an interactive component. And Ian, if you want to pull up, we have a mock-up of a decal that we're printing, and they're small, they're 4x4, non-permanent adhesive. It's the kind of thing you might put, you know, in your rear windshield next to your college decal or sports team decal. You might put it maybe in a window in your office or on your storm door. And it's a way that you can not only be reminded of these things when you look at it, but also spread the word and show that you support these simple ways to keep Wakefield healthy. But we're partnering with the Chamber of Commerce to create an interactive component to it. So these are not in yet, but when they are, they'll be complimentary, and you can grab one here in the lobby of Town Hall, next door at 5 Common Street where the Chamber is, and in the Savings Bank and Cooperative Bank branches. And you can grab one and put one up wherever you want. And if you snap a photo of yourself, either with your decal or with a business that has one, you'll be entered into a raffle. And all of this will be laid out once we have the decals in. But basically, residents can win $20 gift certificates to local restaurants, which again helps the business community. And businesses can also participate. If they put one up on their front door or on a mirror or a window, they can enter to win a nice floral arrangement sourced locally to spruce up their space. And the town administrator did say that he will personally contribute a bottle of champagne or sparkling soda, cider to, you know, just kind of acknowledge their support during this incredibly tough time. So we're hoping to launch that maybe the first or second week in December, and it will run for 4 weeks. So keep your eye out.
Great. Thank you, Jen. Great work. And I do would be remiss if I didn't thank all of our municipal employees, town, school side that have shown up every day for work, particularly our nurses at both our Board of Health Department and at the school department. They are doing yeoman's work around the clock, including contact tracing and probably virtually holding people's hands as they deal with this and they get nervous. So I do want to thank them, and of course our Board of Health and our Town Council, School Committee, for being very supportive of our efforts and really setting the tone about trying to keep Wakefield safe. So I do want to point that out there. Thanksgiving is coming. We talked about that a lot last week. Doug and I actually have a letter that'll be going out today, just re-emphasizing, please, you know, keep your group small, practice best, you know, have best practices, wear a mask, you know, that is your single best thing we can do. Try to do something virtually, you know, do a Zoom call, do all these things right now, so we'll have brighter days in the future. So with that, I do wish everyone a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. We will actually not meet, I hope, next Friday, unless something crazy happens. We're all going to give you all a week off from us, which is probably the most important thing. But thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. Anybody have anything else to add? I don't see anything. I don't see anything in the chat. So all I can say is stay safe, Wakefield. Wear a mask. Watch your distance. Wear a mask. Watch distance. Wash your hands. And stay safe. So have a great day. Wakefield Pride. Take care. Bye-bye.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
everyone.
Thanksgiving, everyone.